Wouldn't it be nice to have several thought leaders in your industry know and love your brand? Start a podcast. Invite your industry's thought leaders to be guests on your show, and start reaping the benefits of having a network full of industry influencers. Learn more at sweetfishmedia.com.
You're listening to the B2B Growth Show, a podcast dedicated to helping B2B executives achieve explosive growth. Whether you're looking for techniques and strategies or tools and resources, you've come to the right place. I'm Jonathan Green.
And I'm James Carberry.
Let's get into the show. Welcome back to the B2B Growth Show. Today we are joined by Wesley Palmisano. Wesley is the president and CEO at Palmisano. Wesley, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
It's a pleasure to have you on the show here. We're going to be talking about something I think it's just very different, which is always exciting to me. Being talking about the 5 things to think about when choosing the right headquarters. So very different, very unique. But Wesley, before we get into that, maybe you can tell us a little about what you and your team at Palmisano are up to these days.
Palmisano is a commercial and civil construction company located in New Orleans, Louisiana. We were founded just under 5 years ago, and we've grown rapidly. Over the first 3 years, in those initial 3 years, we grew from startup to around $100 million in revenue, and we hired over 100 new employees in that same time frame. So extremely rapid growth in the commercial construction industry as our primary business, but then, of course, as if we didn't have enough going on already, we also started a civil construction company in that same time frame and started to ramp it up and grow it as well. And so, of course, with all that growth, the topic of today's show is extremely timely for us because we just moved into a newly built corporate headquarters that, of course, was driven by our rapid growth and something that was part of our business plan and that we wanted to accomplish by the 5-year milestone as part of our original 5-year business plan.
Yeah, that's incredible. And, one of my favorite things about this show is that we get to feature guests who they themselves have experienced like this exact sort of growth that you're talking about. And so you've obviously been through it. You've been in the trenches. You've seen this firsthand. Again, 5 things that you should really be thinking about when choosing the right headquarters. So, Wesley, you're definitely the right person to come on the show and talk to us about this today. Let's just jump right in. What is the first consideration that you think people should be thinking about?
Well, for an office space, it was, of course, I always think back to our trajectory and growth of the organization. And we started out in a leased space in downtown New Orleans, which is really unique for a construction company like us and to be located in a downtown environment. And I guess one little side note on our business is that most of the work we do is design build in terms of format, which means that we're engaged and involved in the design and the construction of the project. And so we're very familiar with what it takes to actually bring together the entire process. And so we started off in a lease space, but in downtown New Orleans, and that is definitely one of the things that we considered and looked at in terms of our original office was trying to find a place that was unique and made us stand out. And so our corporate image, I think, is the first thing that we took into consideration for that lease space. And then, of course, as we move towards a blank slate now, because we built a new construction building for our new headquarters, we first thought about corporate image and what did we want the building and the headquarters to say about the organization. And we kind of dug in and thought about who we are as an organization, the personality of the brand. And from that brand personality, we started to develop what we felt like the building should embody. And, of course, that's very difficult to capture in a physical space because our company and our organization and the growth has been driven by what we believe to be an extremely talented and unique set of individuals. And so capturing the personality of the group in a physical space is not easy to do. But, by looking at our core values and what we stand for as an organization, we found a lot of inspiration in what the building should become. And some of those things that, to give some specific examples are one of our core values that we think is fairly unique about us is called sweep floors, which we look at that as this mentality that we're all very down to earth and individuals that are willing to do whatever it takes to get the job done. And in our industry, of course, sweeping the floors is one of the lower tasks. And so we look at it as everyone, including myself, should be willing to physically sweep the floors on the job site. And so we have this very down-to-earth mentality. And so in thinking about the headquarters, what that meant to us in terms of brand personality was that we wanted the space to be welcoming and very down-to-earth. We didn't want to have marble floors and fancy finishes. And so translating that to the actual product in the construction world, and it's obviously very fitting to our brand personality and the fact that we're a construction company, everything in this building and in our headquarters is steel, wood, glass, or concrete. So we only have 4 materials throughout the entire building. But we put it together in a way that it's tastefully done, it's elegant, and it's an extremely nice headquarters and a Class A space, but just done in a way that it starts to embody who we are as an organization.
Yeah, I love that. I mean that there was so much thought that went into that, into the, what is your corporate image? How do we want to project that? And I think this second point is also tied into that. It's taking into consideration your company culture.
It is, and so on the cultural front, I've already hit a little bit on core values, brand personality, portraying outwardly to the world who we are. But at the same time, when I think about culture, I'm thinking more about the people here and their personalities and how we interact with each other. And so from a cultural standpoint, we tried to make the building very functional for our people and the way we think and work and operate. And so, from everything from desk configurations and actual workspaces, which we spent a lot of time on trying to get that right, in which, where we landed actually I think is somewhat innovative in that most offices are either private office dominant, you'll see in some industries, or in other applications you'll see a very open floor plan where you can look completely across the floor and it's a wide open space with kind of a farm of cubicles. We didn't really care for either one of those models, and so where we landed was something that's kind of a blend of the two, and something that I describe, and it's obviously the visual is much better than a verbal description, but I describe it as pods. And so we established an environment where teams of people can work together, but then there's privacy from one team to the next. And so our world is very project driven, and there are usually teams of 5 or 6 people working on a particular large commercial construction project. And so those teams have an environment where there's a lot of collaboration among the teams, and they have each team has breakout meeting space, they have phone rooms for conference calls, they have whiteboard space, standing huddle areas for daily huddles. We have scoreboards for metrics and tracking of product data in each team area. But then those teams have some privacy from one team to the next because the other team is working on a completely different initiative or a completely different project. And so the workspace is set up in a manner that it's very conducive to an environment where our people can function at a high level. And then at the same time, we wanted, since there is this very intense collaborative workspace where there tends to be a very high level of engagement, we wanted places for people to be able to retreat. So on the other side of the coin, I guess, in addition to the office layout, we set up a lot of public spaces that have a really high level of quality. So we have a courtyard. That's a really nice space that the building actually enters through. And then we've got a ton of really nice meeting spaces and meeting rooms where people can break out of their space and meet with each other. But then the real, I guess, the focal point of the building is a communal area where we've got a cafe, a really nice break room and lunchroom space. There's a training room connected to that flows into it, and then an outdoor deck that actually overlooks the Mississippi River because we chose a location that is right along the river in New Orleans. And, that outdoor deck, it has outdoor kitchen, ping pong tables, couches, sitting areas, different opportunities for people to even sit outside and work. And then, of course, the technology package in the building is also in keeping with that, with a very mobile work environment. And people can easily get up from their desk and work anywhere in the building. In the cafe space, of course, we have all the amenities of which you may see at a tech company, even as being kind of what we consider ourselves the next generation of construction professionals. And so we've got the keg cooler and iced coffee, and we've got a real cafe set up that I guess is coffee shop atmosphere with surround sound music, and I think we've got a 90-inch TV in there, and it's a really neat space that feels almost like a Starbucks type of atmosphere in the morning, but of course in the afternoon it turns into happy hour.
Right. Well, and it's just you've put so much thought into what company culture wise, what are our employees like? Like, how can we create this environment that will be, most conducive for, obviously you want them to be comfortable, but how that comfort then leads to productivity. So that sounds fantastic. And those are things that are sort of in the here and now, your current corporate image, your current company culture. But you also took into consideration your future business plan.
We did, and we learned a good lesson as we moved in our first office space. When we moved into it, of course, we had just a handful of employees because we were early in establishing the business, and granted, it was a lease space. But even in that case, we thought we had enough space for expansion, but we quickly learned that it wasn't enough. And so in the office, we started with 6 people, I think, in the old building, and when we moved out of there, we had almost 60 in the same space.
Wow.
And so we learned a lesson about our growth and trying to accommodate for that. And so in this building, we built a headquarters that fully accommodates, of course, the current staff, but also accommodates our current 3-year business plan. And we wanted the building to be able to accommodate the 3-year growth plan at a minimum. And so we have space built into here where we can end up adding about 50% additional capacity to the staff, which accommodates that 3-year growth. But then beyond that, and trying to be extremely forward-thinking, we also built the building with the capacity to go up an extra 2 floors.
Wow.
And so by adding that vertical expansion, it would add a tremendous additional capacity that would accommodate any future plan. And so we've got almost a 2-stage plan for what the future may bring, but doing it in a way that first stage of growth is built into the building and easily accommodated within the current headquarters, and that's for that near-term plan. But if we continue to grow at the same pace over a much longer term, we didn't want to build that much additional capacity into the building day one, but of course leaving the flexibility in the way we design the structure to be able to accommodate what may come 10 or 15 years out.
Yeah, obviously you're talking about growth, you're talking about the future. Is that sort of also wrapped up in this 4th point that you considered your talent acquisition?
Definitely. I mean, we wanted to set up a headquarters that was innovative. It's unique for a construction company, and I've mentioned this briefly a minute ago, that I think most people that have toured our new headquarters feel like we're a tech company, and what people envision to be the Google type of office. And so our office and headquarters is very unique for a construction company, and we're already seeing that it's an environment that people love working in. And so by having that, it's allowing us to continue to attract top talent and retain those people here and keep them happy long term. And obviously, the physical environment is not the only thing. Of course, it's we're huge on company culture and morale, and that's a big part, we believe, or part of the formula for our success. And the physical environment is obviously important as well, of having employees happy and healthy in the place of work. And so we also incorporated. We've got 2 gyms in the building, which one is an indoor cardio and yoga space, and the other we actually have a warehouse type of environment for high intensity interval training. And so, holistic wellness, corporate wellness programs. We've got another program that we run where we provide healthy meals for the employees as well. And so this becomes more than just a job. It's to some extent an entire lifestyle. And so by doing that, and having obviously the nice and very forward-thinking and innovative office, which is very consistent with how we envision ourselves as an organization of being the future of our industry, it gives us an opportunity to attract that top talent and and I guess take a page from the book of some of the tech firms that have found a lot of success through similar methodologies.
Yeah. You've you've certainly turned it into a sort of a one-stop shop. I mean, you got your coffee, you got your happy hour, you got your meal prep, you got your gym. So it sounds incredible. Wesley, let's talk about this fifth and final point that you considered when choosing the right headquarters is the customer base. How does that factor in?
Well, the reason I like to make this a point for us, and I think this definitely varies by industry, and for some industries they need to be close to their customers, and for other industries it's not as important. But in our case, I think it has to do with our customers. It has to do with a little bit of the personality of the brand. But it was very difficult, and that's the reason that in our case it's something that was important in the consideration, because as a construction company we generally need a lot of space, which is not easy to come by in a downtown environment at any reasonable price point. And so it was very important for us to be near downtown and to be in an urban environment for multiple reasons. One, again, it's consistent with the brand personality and the fact that we made a decision to establish ourselves downtown when we started as an organization, which was unique. Most construction companies end up locating their offices outside of the city where there's more space available. And so we wanted to be close to downtown, but then obviously we also had to find a piece of property that was affordable. Most of our clients and customers are downtown. Our work, as we've really ramped up and grown as an organization, tends to be all downtown, and that's the type of work we do. And our market niche is urban construction, a lot of mixed use, hotel, retail, projects that are in a downtown environment. And so we wanted to make sure that we were part of the conversation, and the project that we developed and built was consistent and in keeping with the type of work we do. And so and then in terms of proximity, most of our customers tend to have offices downtown. Yeah. And so we're back and forth a lot between job sites, and we even have, which is another, I guess, part of the culture, that we have company branded bikes that we can actually ride to the job sites in a lot of cases. So it's another unique thing to see some of our guys actually riding down the street with a hard hat on instead of a bike helmet.
That's fantastic. Well, Wesley, one of the things that we've been asking our current guests, especially people in a situation such as yourself, you're sort of leading the Palmisano team to obviously some extreme growth. It's been a huge part of your life. What is the kind of legacy that you are trying at the end of the day to leave behind? And whether that is professionally, personally, or even a combination of the two.
The legacy that I'd hope to leave behind is something that we defined very early on. And so my own personal goals are somewhat intertwined, as I think many entrepreneurs may find themselves in that type of situation where they found a company and the goals of the organization and their own tend to merge together in some ways because the company becomes such a big part of your life. As an organization, when we set up, instead of defining a traditional mission and vision statement, we define what we call our manifesto, and that takes the place of that traditional vision and mission statement. And actually, relating back to our headquarters, when you walk in the front door of the building in the lobby, behind our receptionist and our front desk, instead of seeing the company's logo, which is what you would see in most corporate headquarter or in most corporate offices, you'll see the company logo behind the desk. We actually put our manifesto there because we feel like that is even more important than the logo and the representation of the brand. And so our manifesto speaks to that legacy, and starts off as a very bold and broad statement of the fact that we want to build a better world. And the way we define that, and obviously that's extremely broad and it's very aggressive and something that we look at as a construction company, how do you really build a better world? And of course, right now we're primarily doing work in Louisiana. We're not across even the United States or much less the world. But at the same time, we look at that and it drives a lot of the decisions we make, and we define it, and there are actually 4 subsets and statements, and you actually would see this even on our website, of our 4 statements that follow that concept of building a better world. And one of them is for our employees and creating really fulfilling careers and a great work environment. So that's number one for me in terms of legacy is creating an environment for the employees here that we create fulfilling careers for everyone that interacts with us. And then our business model is driven by relationships, so that's the second component of it, is building these deep relationships in the community with clients we interact with architects, with subcontractors, with really the people we do business with, and creating this legacy of goodwill and always doing the right thing. And the third aspect is for our industry, in the construction industry, and we see ourselves as innovators in our space, and we want to leave behind this legacy of the fact that we are the future of construction, and we see our industry as being the same for the last 50 or 100 years, and there's an opportunity right now for disruption, and it's happening in a lot of other industries, but we think the way that we deliver construction is extremely innovative, and many companies may follow that model in the future. And then the last aspect is the broader community. We have already established a foundation where we do a lot of charitable work in the community, and we want to leave a legacy behind of being a good corporate citizen and giving back to the communities where we do business. And so, that concept of building a better world is something that drives most of the decisions we make every day, and the decisions in terms of growth as well are driven by that. And the fact that we want to continue to grow and expand is so that we can have a bigger impact in those same areas and in the 4 different aspects that I just described.
That's wonderful. Well, yeah, certainly building a better world is an aggressive legacy, but it sounds like you and your team are doing some fantastic things. It's a beautiful legacy that you're building towards. So again, Wesley, thank you so much for coming on the show, sort of sharing some of the details about the things that went into your decision when you were choosing the right headquarters, sharing that wisdom with our listeners. If any of our listeners are interested in connecting with you or your company, finding out more about what you're up to, finding out more about today's topic, what's the best way for them to go about doing that?
The best place to find us is through our website, which is WJ Palmisano, and the spelling of that is PALMISANO.com.
Perfect. Well, Wesley, thank you again so much for your time today. It was an absolute pleasure having you on the show.
Thank you for having me.
There are lots of ways to build a community, and we've chosen to build the B2B growth community through this podcast. But because of the way podcasts work, it's really hard to engage with our listeners. And without engagement, it's tough to build a great community. So here's what we've decided to do. We're organizing small dinners across the country with our listeners and guests. No sales pitches, no agenda, just great conversations with like-minded people. We'll talk business, we'll talk family, we'll talk goals and dreams. We'll build friendships. So if you'd like to be a part of a B2B growth dinner in a city near you, go to b2bgrowthdinners.com. That's b2bgrowthdinners.com. Thank you so much for listening. Until next time.